On today's episode, we have a veteran real estate investor, over 20 years of real estate investing experience. She's done over 1,000 successful real estate projects. Her and her team done a lot of lending, marketing as it relates to real estate, selling projects, budgeting for projects, renovations, rehabbing, contractor management. Just a lot of things that our guest has done today. And our guest is Donna Mixon. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Tom. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time, especially in your busy schedule. I can only imagine with everything that you have going on. So would you mind just sharing just a little bit about how you got into real estate? I know that you and I spoke earlier that you had at one point been a real estate agent. At this point, you're not. But how you got into real estate initially, and how you maybe discuss a little bit how that transition went from early on. I mean,
sure.
20 years of real estate experience, that's a lot. And I can only imagine the stories that you have to share, and would love to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, there's lots of stories and lessons learned, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a bit odd, I think, as in when I was a teenager, I knew I wanted to be in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even exactly know why, because it wasn't like someone in my family was doing it and I was motivated or trained by them. I think that I heard that, real estate was just a really good way to build wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And that intrigued me. My parents, we moved and, bought a new house, and that process also kind of spurred something in me. And it's kind of like real estate's in my blood. Yeah. I don't know how to explain it, but since I was a teenager, I wanted to be in real estate.
Wow.
And so it took me a few years to get there because, you have to support yourself and there's things in life that come up. And then one day when I was in my very early 20s, I said, enough's enough. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to let anybody stop me or tell me no. And it was actually in the 80s during the recession. And I don't know that anybody didn't tell me I was crazy at the time. They're like, what the heck are you thinking?
Yeah.
And luckily, when I was in real estate school, actually, a gentleman that I met was doing his renewal hours. And he said, Donna, if you're going to do real estate now, then you really need to go to work for a HUD broker, which is FHA foreclosures. Someone that specializes in that, because that's what's moving. And I was like, okay. All I know is I need to be in real estate. So, so I checked into that further. And for the first couple of years, that's what I specialized in, which, most realtors were sitting around and complaining about how terrible it was. And at that time, HUD was paying realtors double the going commission because they had a lot of houses to unload. And it was fun, and I was making the best money of my life where the other realtors were complaining,
Mm-hmm.
And so the market started to shift, and I guess the realtors that were hungry, that didn't get out, got to starvation mode, and they began selling HUD homes when before they wouldn't do that. They thought it was beneath them. So, so it was kind of funny. And then houses started selling for above market, and that I could not do because these are first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
They're very naive. They're looking to the realtor to protect them and coach them through things. So as that transitioned, I transitioned into what people think of as regular real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I seemed to sell a whole lot of new homes. And so for years, actually, one of the builders that I sold a lot of homes for tried to recruit me to come to work for them. And I was always like, no, no, no. And I actually began covering their days off at the models sometimes, or if they were on vacation, because I knew the product. I sold a lot of them. And then one day I was kind of in a life transition, and I just called up the manager and I said, okay, today I'm ready. And that's when I went to work for a builder. And I worked for a couple of builders. I actually worked for one of the largest builders in Dallas-Fort Worth. They were building over 2,000 homes a year. Mm-hmm. And that was quite a wonderful experience because they were very advanced in their thinking. I got to learn computers because, at my age, we didn't grow up on computers. Yeah, right. So I learned computers, I learned budgeting. They had classes that I could take that taught you just everything you needed to know from A to Z, because the company was very entrepreneurial minded, as in each of our subdivisions were run much like a franchise. And even though we weren't a franchise, it was ran that way. And we had access to see what someone anywhere in Dallas-Fort Worth paid for heat and air, or their sheetrock guy, or whatever. And we were responsible for our bottom line. Like, it was all very transparent. We knew if every house was profitable. If it wasn't, why not? It was up to us to analyze it. And so the education that I got from working for that company was priceless. It was priceless. And I took advantage of every educational class I could. Ultimately, I got a big promotion to a special job where I was part of a fix-it team that went out and fixed subdivisions that weren't running well. Mm-hmm. Again, I was so honored to be picked for that. I actually beat out someone that I consider my mentor. And so I was like blown away but I worked hard and I earned it. But to beat out your mentor for a job, I was like, wow.
Yeah, no kidding. We're about at that point, was that, how far into that 20 years were you?
Oh,
roughly.
Well, see, the thing is, Tom, I say 20 plus years because that's enough.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I don't really want to age myself.
Right. So maybe halfway through, would you say?
Probably a little less than halfway through.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And then from there, what I'm hearing here, which is really cool, is that you're sharing how you got started, and you used what I would call stepping stones, or you were able to step your way up. You started
like one brick at a time, man.
Yep. You started as an agent. You started doing the work that other people didn't want to do. As in working with listings that are not the most fun to work with. Once that got a little hotter and people got more pressure that they needed to do something, then other people came in and started to join you. But then as you were going, you leveraged your way up. You started building those relationships. And some of those relationships were especially the one with a large new home construction company. I can only imagine what that was like when you talk about systems and processes in order to be a company that big.
It was phenomenal.
The things that you can learn through that is amazing. And then the other piece that I think is interesting is that you were able to beat out some other people who maybe typically could have been considered more qualified. Yes. But I'm going to bet, just knowing you, and I've known you now for 4 or 5 years, I've known that, if there's anybody that knows what they're talking about when it comes to real estate investing, real estate lending, it's very obvious when we talk that you have that experience, you have that knowledge. But I am going to bet that the reason you beat that maybe your mentor out, or whomever that was, is because you paid attention to detail. And I know that that's how you, because I know you, I know that that's one of your strong points, is paying attention to detail and being able to really understand a project as you're going through it and understand the risks. So
yeah, and thank you for saying that. One of the things that I did some people just show up and go to the interview, right?
mhm.
And I did a huge market study, and I mean, in depth,
Mm.
huge market study, binder size,
Yeah.
and turned it in. And then while they were making their decision, I followed up once or twice a week with another piece of helpful information that would be something I would be doing if the job was mine. Right.
Yes. Yes.
And
Powerful.
and I'm just, that's really how I try to run my business as well. Like, we give away tons of free information, and I know you do too, Tom. I mean,
Mhm.
you're amazing. You're a role model for me, as
Thank you.
in, giving and sharing and always being very generous with your knowledge, and I appreciate that. And that's what we do as well, is, we share our knowledge. And I
Mhm.
tell our borrowers all the time, and my money partners, the information, because some people pay, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, maybe 100,000 for a mentorship and some training.
Yeah.
And I just tell them, whatever I know, when you're my borrower or you're my money partner, like,
Mhm.
we're a team.
A
We're working
team.
together. So
You said it. Yep.
whatever I have that can help you, short
Mhm.
of non-disclosure agreements, of course, I'm going to honor those, right? But
Yep.
I'm going to help you. So when we're looking at a project, that 20 plus years of experience is really what helps mitigate risk and lower the risk of that project. We do not go into a project thinking, oh, it's all rosy, it's all
Mhm.
going to be
Mhm.
good, and
Yeah.
the sun's only shines, it never rains.
Yeah.
I've been through a couple of recessions now in real estate.
Mhm.
I got in during a recession, and I've been through a couple of them. I definitely look at, how do we dot our I's and cross our T's, and how do we cover the downside? What if,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
One thing that you touched on, or that you shared, and this is so true, and this is what we are always pushing, whether it's through this podcast or through the real estate investment club meetings that we have, and I believe you have some in Texas as well, is the idea of collaboration, the idea of the
Yes.
abundance mindset, the idea of sharing, giving, and I call it the cycle of abundance. The more we give, the more we get back, the better we do, so we can give back more, and we do better,
Yes.
and it causes that ripple effect. And so in this case, the ability to give and be part of a team and really keep the deals solid and sound, because with collaboration, if everybody's pulling in the same direction, what does that do? It creates a process where people are
Yes.
covering each other's back. Everybody's pulling in the same direction. The risks are reduced. The chances of the project getting done sooner are better. The chance of the project being on budget or under budget is a lot greater by this
Absolutely.
really tight collaboration. So
and as well as I do, Tom, it doesn't guarantee anything, but
right.
experience does lower risk.
Yes.
I tell people all the time, you cannot, I don't care how many classes you take, you cannot learn this business in a classroom. You can't.
Absolutely.
You can learn some systems, processes, you can get some checklists that are helpful, but you can't learn this business in a classroom. It's a business of hard knocks. You got to get out there and make it happen. And I strongly encourage people, like, one of the challenges we had when we started as private lenders is that we literally passed on or turned down, whichever you want to call it, over 100 borrowers before we ever said yes to any of them.
Yeah.
Over 100. I mean, that's, I don't even know why I kept going, quite honestly.
That's discipline.
I'm like, are any of them ever going to be good enough for me to lend to?
But that's it. That's discipline. That's tenacity.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sticking with your rules. I mean,
Yeah.
well, I'm sure, and we'll get into this in just a bit, but with your private lending business, you needed to set up your own set of rules, your
Yes.
criteria.
And because of my history, my criteria and rule list was quite long because I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of life lessons
Right.
to build that list off of. And so where I think, like, and some of these borrowers come to us, they'll come and they'll be like, hey, yeah, I just paid 50,000 for a mentorship, so now I'm an expert. And
Yes.
I don't mean to discount that. I applaud people that are willing to invest in their education. I'm still saying team up with a local in your market, the market you're
Mm-hmm.
working in, team up with a mentor and learn from them. And I'm not talking about someone from another state. I'm talking about someone in your market.
Yes.
And that knows the market, knows what contractors to use, which ones not to use. I'm going to say the success of a project is, I don't know, you can give your own number, Tom, but I'm going to say I think it's 90% finding the right contractors.
It is.
Because
Borrowers
there
and
is a
contractors.
lot of bad contractors out there,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
there are some also really good ones. And the really good ones can save your tail
Yes.
in not just doing their job, but like the ones that are proactive and thinking, well, hey, Donna, did you notice this over here?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's huge.
Absolutely.
And going back to our history and what brought me to what we do today is, so
Just one thing I
ultimately
want to
from
share.
what yeah.
Just one thing, and that is the idea of contractors and performance and team.
Yes.
I could not agree with you anymore.
Yes.
And I've said this many times about our company and what we do. I don't think we've ever, in the last 7+ years on the lending side and fund management side, we have never funded a bad deal, but we funded several bad borrowers, bad contractors, bad teams, I guess is what we would call it. And so some of those were early on. So some of the lessons learned, but you can find super good deals and you get a contractor, borrower, developer, or whatever.
And all of a sudden it's not a profitable project anymore.
It could be a break even, or sometimes in a rare case, maybe even a loss of money. But you can take a project that's fairly good and not even all that spectacular, and you can make it shine by having the right team and the right network of people to work with. And it just
110%. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's really, anybody that's listening, just don't glaze over that. Really understand.
Absolutely. Finding the right contractors is key to your success.
Yeah,
key.
Absolutely.
Huge key. Not just key, huge key. When I said 90%, I think it's 90%. Yeah, I mean, you can be not the brightest guy on the block and not really know what you're doing, but if you have the right contractor, the right contractors, you can still be successful.
Yeah, right.
And
the other point that you just made too was the idea of working with and collaborating with someone who is experienced.
Yes.
Just like you did when you got started. You didn't jump in and decide I wanted to get into real estate and now I'm going to build 5 homes. You stepped up. You started gradually, and you used each level of experience that you gained as a stepping stone to get to that next level. So even if our listeners have come out of a rah-rah conference or boot camp or whatever it might be, a training weekend, or
those are good. They're a stepping stone. Just don't think you know it all yet.
Exactly. Just be really careful, especially some of them. They tend to have energy and they maybe get a little bit hyped up. Just be really cautious and team up with people who are very experienced, who know the ropes. It's going to be one of the best decisions you ever make. And real estate is a good investment, but it can also be very dangerous if it's not handled.
I tell the borrowers that call us, because, if they haven't done a project before, or maybe they've done one, I tell them all the time, like, you need to find a local mentor, someone in that market that can help you avoid the terrible mistakes and losing money, and the things that they can help you with are endless. And if you don't make a dime on that project, it's okay, because you
Yes.
just saved yourself from losing a ton of money, you know?
Right. Right.
So back to what we were talking about with the builder that I was so fortunate to work for. From that experience, we were able to start our own custom home building company.
Okay.
And so we had that for several years up until 2008, when no one really wanted to build custom homes anymore. But that was a wonderful experience. And that previous company that was a huge stepping stone to help us do that.
And would you mind, just so that we get context for any of the listeners that may be more new to the real estate investing realm, could you describe the differences of custom home building versus speculation home building?
Or track, yeah. So I call them track homes. So in Dallas-Fort Worth, we have a lot of track homes. Some markets don't really have track homes. It just depends. Like in the busier, higher growth markets, they're going to have a lot of track builders. And those builders, they're building like the same house over and over and over. You come in, you pick a floor plan. The house may or may not already be under construction, and maybe you get to pick out some of your colors, but you don't really get to design the house.
Yes.
But they spend a lot of time picking out good floor plans that they think work. And so that makes the house more affordable. It's a more affordable model. Yeah. In our own company, we specialized we never actually built the same house twice, ever. We specialized what I called from the napkin up, where we sat down with the customer and just asked about their needs, their desires, and we totally customized a home from the napkin up, just designed for them within, whatever their budget was, whatever their size, their family needs. And I would literally draw it up and then send it to the architect for the stamp.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was a lot of fun, actually. It was a lot of fun. I love designing homes.
So. We've done, I've done some custom home building, but most of what we've done has been more of the either tract home, or we call them spec homes. Spec is shortened for speculation. You build it with a speculation that somebody's going to come and buy it. So any of the listeners, if you hear those terms, you pretty much know what we're talking about. So
I want to key back to something that you mentioned earlier, and that's team. Team is critical. It's what can make or break you. So the team is your contractors. If you're, a builder or a rehabber, it can be your attorney, your CPA, your closing title company. If you're a money partner, it's what I call a deal sponsor. And that is what Tom and I both are. We're the ones that, usually are meeting with the borrowers or equity project, because we do different size projects. So some of them are debt, some are equity, some are ownership, some are loans. So there's all kinds of ways to structure projects. But the bottom line is we're the ones out there, hitting the streets, looking at the project, saying, do this long list of due diligence, and meeting with the borrowers to say, I think this is a project that I'm interested in, or no, I'm going to pass on this one.
That's a great explanation. And just to make sure it's clear, you at this point are doing you're doing quite a bit of lending. So you're on the lending side of the equation, and you are the deal sponsor. And so what's really great about your background is that you have everything. You have that 20 plus years of experience that then is sort of the buffer and the support, the due diligence for passive investors who might be going in alongside with the investment. You're teaming up and you're becoming the deal sponsor and controlling the project, vetting the project, monitoring it.
Right.
Taking it all the way through the process.
Yeah, we use all private capital to fund our projects. And our money partners, most of them are very busy. They have real jobs, and then some of them are just retired. and they don't want to work this hard.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know you work really hard, Tom. I work really hard. You know, we both work really hard. We know what it takes to be a deal sponsor.
For sure.
It's an enormous amount of work and hours, and we're doing this full time. And most people that already have a full-time job, they can't do that, but they want some solutions that are, maybe they're sick and tired of the stock market, or I call them stock market refugees, you know? And, or maybe they just want something, you know, one of the things that I love about real estate is there's a real asset there, you know? So even if it burns down, you know, the plan is you're supposed to have insurance, right? And so I don't know, when's the last time, Tom, did you ask your stockbroker, hey, what would it cost to get insurance on my stock? You know, try that one, you know?
Absolutely.
So, you know, to me, real estate is still, even there is risk, there is absolutely risk, but to me, it's one of the lowest risk investments that people can invest in. So I feel honored to be, you know, right here at where I'm at this point in life. And, you know, we have a lot of really great money partners. And yes, we do a lot of debt, and we're doing more and more equity as well as we're moving to larger and larger projects. And when I say larger projects, I'm still a big component of affordable housing, and I've done both. I just think affordable housing is lower risk. And so, you know, we have a lot of things.
You just mentioned the risk, and we were talking about the why real estate. A couple of the reasons that I think real estate is far and above some other investments is the fact that you really do get a solid asset. You get the asset, the building. If the due diligence is done properly, whether it's building or land, whatever it is, you have a hard, solid asset that is used as collateral. So that's number one. Number two,
so it typically doesn't disappear overnight. You know?
Right. And then number two is the fact that the volatility. There's the volatility in a market of real estate. Yeah, it does go up and down, but it certainly does not go up and down even close to as fast as what the stock market or a lot of other investments do. So there's a lot more, a lot less volatility, basically. And so those are two obvious, like very apparent reasons why a lot of people like real estate over other investments.
And of course, I'm very fortunate because my home is Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. You know, I can't say enough about how fortunate I feel to be here in this economy and this market. You know, we have such a strong job market, and major corporations just keep moving in, which creates a huge shortage of affordable housing. So things look really good in our future for growth. You know, and they're good now, and they continue to look good.
Great. So let's, if we can just go down one path here, actually two paths. One is going to be, if you had advice for we'll call it the way I look at it, there's a spectrum of in investing in real estate. There's the active side all the way through to the passive. So there's a completely active on the left-hand side of the spectrum. That's the person that is finding deals and maybe doesn't have a lot or put a lot of money into the deals themselves. They leverage by bringing private capital in. So they leverage the passive side. The passive side on the far right-hand side of the scale is the person or the whomever it may be with money that doesn't necessarily have the time or doesn't want to take the time or make the effort to do all the work on the project. So the idea of this podcast, the idea of the book, the whole bank-free blueprint setup is to show people how to work together, how money can work with deals, how deals can work with money, collaborate, work together, everybody comes together with a much better project without having to use a bank, without having to use fund, like we run a couple of real estate funds. You don't need us. You can do it all on your own. And so if you were talking to, let's start on the active side first. If you're talking to a listener or the listeners on the podcast right now, and you were to give them maybe one piece of advice or two pieces of advice on how to locate or how to strengthen their position as that investor that has or is looking for deals that also needs money on the other side, is if you could just pick some sort of an area there that you have advice on.
Someone that's interested in being an active investor. Is that your question?
Let's say somebody they consider themselves on the active side of the scale, and either they're having a hard time finding deals, or they're having a hard time finding money. Any advice for them? Because that's a common place for beginners to be sitting.
I'm not 100% sure what your question is, to be honest, but I'm going to answer it what I think it is. So if someone's wanting to be a deal sponsor, is that what your question is?
No, my question is more of, we know there are listeners right now that that are anxious to get into real estate.
A borrower, a potential borrower, whether it's equity or debt.
Yeah, whether it's a joint venture, borrower-lender relationship.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what we said earlier, and that's team up with a mentor. If you're new, think of what a Harvard education cost, okay? And so if you team up with a mentor, even if you didn't make a dime on that project, guess what? You're not $150,000 in debt either.
Exactly.
And I've seen so many people on their first 3 projects, not that we lent to them, okay? These are people that I passed on or I've talked to, and they, later come back and they're like, oh crap, you were right. Even though, they might have even been arrogant that they had all this knowledge, thinking that because, the TV shows make it look easy. It is not easy. It's not easy. Yeah. And so again, teaming up with a mentor, even if you don't make a dime and you just offer to be their slave, and do the dirty work, do whatever it takes. Yeah. And maybe you're lucky enough to find someone who'd split the profits with you 50-50, but if not, it's okay, because they just saved you $150,000. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. And a lot of pain and agony. And now if you do 3 projects with them, guess what? You just saved yourself $150,000 education and, a lot of pain and agony, because a lot of people, they do a first deal and they're out of this business. And a lot of them, maybe they're like, okay, so that one didn't go good, but I can make it work now. And by 3, they're gone. Yeah. I think, people that get past 3 projects, I don't really know the percentage, but I'm going to say probably less than 5% of the people who think they're going to do this business get past 3.
And think about all those lessons learned in those 3 projects. Can you, I know, because I've seen it just like you have.
And so teaming up with a mentor can change your success ratio dramatically.
Yeah. How about on the other side of the spectrum? Let's just say someone has money in their retirement account, or maybe like in my book, one of my avatars is a busy dentist. Let's say that one of our listeners or our listeners have money in somewhere that they want to invest passively. What would you say is 1 or 2 things that they should look for when they're searching out that active investor, the person with the deal? What's really important for them to see and to know and understand?
I think it's about experience and track record and getting to know that person. I'm not saying you don't have to go to the ball game with them, okay? But you need to know that they're the type of person, when the going gets tough, that they get going. Because I've seen deal sponsors, when the going get tough, they just disappear. They just disappear because they're scared and they don't know what to do. You know what? When the going gets tough, I strap on my army boots. That's what I call it, mentally. I strap on my army boots and we get right in there. And I have a team. It's not just me. I have a wonderful team around me that I'm surrounded with. And there's several of us that are full-time in this business. And we just jump in. We just jump in, and, sometimes, some days you're like, oh, how will we ever, like, how could this happen? And then you figure it out, one piece of puzzle at a time, and you climb out of it.
You mentioned 2 words before earlier on in the show, and one of them was ethical. The other was transparency. And to me, those they scream of importance when a passive investor is looking at who they might put their money with, who that active investor might be that they end up teaming up with.
Yeah. Another important thing I think to mention for passive investors is, let's hypothetically say you have $1 million sitting around.
Mm-hmm.
I would highly recommend you don't put that $1 million all in one project. Okay.
Right.
I call it spreading the love. Spread
Mm-hmm.
out the love, which also lowers your risk.
Yeah.
So if you have $1 million, you might decide to put that in 3 or 4 projects, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you might decide to put it in 10, put 100,000 in 10 projects.
Yep.
It's certainly up to you, but I definitely would not recommend putting that $1 million in one project.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that, everybody's in a different place. So we have investors that, put in 20, 30, 40 grand, and we have investors that put in 100 grand plus. So
mm-hmm.
there's a variety, and it just depends on the project, what the minimum investments are. But there's different projects for different sizes of investments.
Yeah, and I would even say for listeners that maybe have 100,000 or 50,000, that too can be split up. 100,000
Absolutely.
Go into
Absolutely.
2 or 3 projects. So diversification of the portfolio is really what it's about.
Yes.
So,
and again, I know we said this, but for the passive investor, I'd say, you need, your due diligence is a lot of, yes, you need to double check the project and have your own criteria list of what you like and what you want to invest in. But the big thing is you need to vet the deal sponsor.
mm-hmm.
And, personally, I don't know, personally, I would ask for references
mm-hmm.
of people that
sure.
have been in multiple projects with that deal sponsor.
Yeah.
And
proof that they
I would.
Mm-hmm.
So, because it is important. And these are, fortunately we have a team. So, there's not just one of us. If something should happen to me, there's other people on the team that can pick up the ball. That's, again, another question. Is mm-hmm. this person a lone ranger? What if something happens to them? So there's mm-hmm. things like that as a money partner or OPM, that you would want to know before putting money in a project.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of your own risk mitigation.
Yeah.
What happens if?
Great.
And ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. So going down that path again, what if you were to share one thing that you wish someone would have told you when you got started or when you were going through your learning process, whatever? Is there anything that comes to mind of, oh, I wish I had known this before I had gotten involved, so that if listeners are in the same position, what would you, anything come to mind?
This is what comes to mind is I had a very difficult borrower mm-hmm. that had what I now call borrower entitlement syndrome. Uh-huh. And that just kind of blew my mind. And I never told him that it was our money, but he assumed it was our money that we were lending him. Mm-hmm. And so when his project got stuck at the city and he couldn't get it out, he truly expected us just to waive his interest. Which is crazy. A bank's not going to waive your interest. I don't know. Right. Like he got really angry that we wouldn't waive his interest. So now I'm very clear with our borrowers that I have partners to answer to, mm-hmm. And so no, I'm not like some zillionaire living on some remote island and doing this all from remote. One, I meet my borrowers in person, but just in case they think when I'm not in front of them, I'm on some tropical island 99% of my life.
Right.
That, because he really thought, that we were rich and we owed him, or the world owed him, not mm-hmm. really us in particular, but we should give him a break because we're rich and he's this poor, lowly guy that's stuck at the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would just
entitlement issues. Yeah.
Truly. So I call it borrower entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I just say, we have people to answer to. We have partners to answer to. So.
Yeah. Okay.
And we do. Yeah. So that was kind of a tough lesson for me because I had no idea what his assumptions were until his anger came out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when projects don't go quite as planned, that's when you really find out
Sometimes people are looking for people to blame. Okay. So that's a really good thing, Tom, is that, if you are looking to be a deal sponsor or even an investor, whoever you are looking to work with, are they blaming other people? Like this borrower, right after closing, he was blaming the title company for stuff, and then he was blaming someone else. So I knew when this came up, it wasn't personal.
Victim mentality.
Unfortunately, I didn't see those signs prior to closing, but I'm going to say, if you see those signs, that victim mentality, that they're blaming someone, it's always someone else's fault, run, because it's not the deal you pass on that keeps you up at night. It's the guy you lend to that causes all this drama, and you're like, where the heck did that come from?
And it's so draining, so time consuming.
It is so time consuming, draining, keeps you up at night. And that's what you want to avoid. So if you see any danger signs, listen to your gut. We actually have gut on our checklist.
Yeah.
And there's 3 of us that vote on that gut. So if any one of us say no, we're out. Like even one person saying no, they have the power that we're not going to lend to that borrower.
Yeah, you mentioned something there, and we won't go too deep into it because I want to wrap this up shortly. But the idea of checklists, how many, just curious, if you're to guess roughly, how many items do you have on your checklist? I can tell, but
I have checklists for my checklist, Tom.
Yeah, totally.
And I know you do too, because I've seen some of yours. But my checklist was so long, and it's a huge spreadsheet. And it's so long and complicated because truly every project can take on a life of its own, as you know, depending on the borrower or the project or the location or the risk profile. You might be going down this way or that way. And there's, so that the checklist is huge. And then there's all of these checklists with inside the checklist.
So true. I mean, it's definitely in the hundreds.
It's definitely in the hundreds. Yes. I would say, it's definitely up there.
I always say I use the number of about 700, and I'm going to guess that you're probably really close to that.
Yeah. And I've never shown it to anyone who wasn't freaking blown away. They're like, wait, this is overkill, Donna. And I'm like, well, you know what? It takes this.
It's so much better to know it ahead of time.
Yes.
I mean, just think about, let's say that you're spending, let's say 5 full days going through that checklist. That's very inexpensive compared to what would happen if you missed something.
Yes, sir.
It's huge. It's critical. So,
and again, I want to reiterate to everyone, it doesn't matter how much experience you have. There's no way that Tom, I, or anyone on this planet can think of everything that might happen. Experience lowers risk. It doesn't take it away, but it does lower risk drastically. So, and it just helps it helps you see things sooner, right? Instead of it getting, way down the track when it's way too late for recovery. Maybe you see it a little sooner than someone else.
Yes.
That's my hope anyway, that I see it sooner, and I think that has happened. And so that's what we're here for, is to lower the risk and make things easier, give people alternatives that
I know we've said it many times, some of the best deals are the ones we never do, right? I mean, it's the ones that never get done. They can be the best. So do you have any resources, let's just say, for instance, a favorite book or a favorite website or resources online or anything like that? I know you've got a giveaway, but before that, any books, any resources that you recommend to our listeners?
I'm going to say it's all about relationships, Tom. And I know I've said that many times here, but it really is all about relationships. Building relationships for me as a deal sponsor like you. It's building relationships with people like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many other deal sponsors as you do, and we can call each other and ask questions.
Yeah.
And, you know, and even jump on a conference call if we need to brainstorm some things out and help each other. I've got a couple of great attorneys. Not just one, you know, in the beginning I had one, now I have two, because if one's busy, I want to answer now. I don't really want to wait. I'm not that patient. And so, you know, so relationships with whoever it is that you need, whether you're a money partner, you need, you know, relationships with deal sponsors that you trust. If you want to be a deal sponsor, you need relationships with other deal sponsors, and understand that deal sponsors are extremely busy. So to take you under their wing and mentor you, I mean, I don't know, Tom, that's probably about a $500,000 mentorship program. But because there's so much to this business, but still, you know, it's good to know people that you can reach out and ask some questions to that can help you.
Yeah. And I want to acknowledge you for the massive amounts of mentoring that I know you've done with other private lenders, trustee investors around the country. You and I have been involved with a group over the last, I think that organization has been going for 7 years now. And you have just been always there, always on top of things, and just willing to give anything and everything to help other investors, even other deal sponsors who in a lot of other industries would be considered competition. It just never has come to that point here.
It never has.
It's collaboration, it's teamwork, it's working together. So you've just done, you've given hundreds and thousands of hours over the years to this, and I really want to acknowledge you for that. There is
I want to help people avoid pain. That's really what it's about. Like, I want people to know that there's good alternatives out there. And then even people jump into private lending thinking it's going to be easy because of the TV shows or whatever. And it's not. And there's risk in any business.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I want to help them be successful. I'm a cheerleader at heart. I was a cheerleader in high school, and I'm a cheerleader at heart. I want people to be successful. I want them to be champions. And if I can give them a little piece or wisdom to help them get there, then I want to do it.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. I love your energy. So if people would like to reach out to you, whether maybe they have a question on something, or they, you know, maybe investing alongside you, or maybe they have got a deal that they think is really super great and they'd like you to look at it. Is there a way that investors can, or listeners of any sort, can reach out and get a hold of you?
Sure. Thank you for asking, Tom. Our primarily borrower website is www.loansforinvestors.com, and that's a numeric 4. So that's loansforinvestors.com. And there's a lot of good information on there for borrowers. And we have certain favorite markets, but even if you're not in that market, if you go to the Apply Now button, we're going to send you all kinds of free education about how to structure projects, how to look at them, how to, you know, get a lender to say yes. And guess what? All that information is free. So feel free to go there and hit the Apply Now button, even if you don't have a project today. And if you have
LOANS, the number 4, investors, plural.com. And I'll make sure we get these connections or URLs put into the show notes. So you'll be able to do it. So if anyone's driving while they're listening to this, don't worry about it. It'll be in the show notes. You can click on that. So,
okay, great. And then my direct email address is donna@tcbcapitalgroup.com. So that's donna@tcb, Tomcat Boy, capitalgroup.com. And my phone number is 817-994-7878. And just have to give you a little tidbit about TCB. My husband is a huge Elvis fan, and Elvis had a ring that had TCB on it for taking care of business. And so that's where TCB comes from.
Love it.
So again, Donna at tcbcapitalgroup.com.
Excellent.
And my husband will be glad I mentioned Elvis.
All right, good. Well, Donna, this has been just an absolute pleasure. I really enjoy all of the information you shared with us, and especially the fact that you're giving all this information out. If people go to your website and just it just is, it's a reflection of what I've seen for the last 4 or 5 years that I've known you, where it's all about give back. So that's Thanks, amazing. And
I wanted to mention, I do have a free report. If anyone's interested, this would be primarily like, someone that's doing passive investing or interested in that. I have the top 7 dangers of lending to real estate investors. And so if you just email me at the Donna@tcbcapitalgroup.com and just put 7 dangers or top 7 dangers or something like that in the subject line, we'll send you that free article on that, just to give you some insight of how to lower risk.
Great. And if you're listening to this podcast and you've enjoyed what you've heard, we would absolutely love it if you could write a review. Be sure to subscribe. This is a weekly podcast, planning on continuing with lots of valuable information. So share it with your friends. Let's make this an amazing community where everyone helps everyone else really become even more successful in everything that we're doing. So Donna, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all the information you've given us.
Sure. Thank you, Tom.